No employment opportunity exists in London, does it? My words came out as barely audible as I gazed at the email displayed on my computer screen. Correspondence between Daniel and a woman called Kate flooded my site, exposing months of deliberate lies. Everything had been fabricated. My spouse remained silent, standing in our barren living space, barren because we had disposed of all our possessions for this alleged new beginning. His lack of response spoke louder than any words could have. I am Selene Harris, and up until this instant, I believed I was getting ready for a thrilling new phase of life. In Minneapolis, I had established a strong career as a financial analyst with Parker and Reed over 10 years. However, when Daniel returned home 3 months prior, excited about an amazing chance in London, I immediately agreed to support him. That's what spouses do, isn't it? They have faith in one another. I put our house on the market, the first property I had ever purchased. I gave away furniture that I had selected carefully, item by item. I even parted with my grandmother's vintage mirror, the sole remaining memento of her, because Daniel claimed we needed to pack lightly. Now I realized why he had insisted so strongly that I sell everything. For how long? I inquired, my voice more steady as rage started to overtake disbelief. How long have you been scheming this with her? Daniel fidgeted awkwardly, his gaze shifting to his prepared luggage near the entrance. Selene, for how long? 8 months, he confessed at last, Kate and I. It simply occurred, and then the strategy just gradually developed, as if it were some organic process to systematically ruin your spouse's existence. Nausea overwhelmed me as I considered how deliberately they must have orchestrated this, delaying until I had disposed of everything, converted all our possessions to liquid funds, eliminated every security measure I had established. The funds have already disappeared, haven't they? I questioned, though I was already certain of the response. Being a financial analyst, I should have noticed the warning signs, but love blinds you, and I had placed complete faith in him. You'll recover, Daniel stated, grabbing his suitcase. You consistently do. As he moved toward the exit, I sensed something transform within me. He was correct about one aspect. I always managed to bounce back. And this occasion wouldn't be any different. As the door shut behind him with a click, I opened my computer and started typing. Daniel had no clue what kind of person he was dealing with. Daniel and I first encountered each other 6 years ago at a financial technology conference in Minneapolis. I recall being struck by his determination and drive. He was employed at a smaller company but harbored grand aspirations of reaching the pinnacle. What I failed to understand then was that his ambition would ultimately devour everything, including our union. Looking backward, I can identify the red flags I decided to overlook, such as how he consistently appeared to take more than he contributed. When we initially married, I had just been given a substantial promotion at Parker and Reed. Rather than celebrating my achievement, Daniel persuaded me to utilize my bonus to assist him in launching his own consulting venture. It's an investment in our future, he had claimed. I trusted him. That was my initial error, though certainly not my final one. For years, I backed his enterprises both financially and emotionally. When his first company collapsed, I worked extra hours to maintain our stability. When he desired to attempt again, I borrowed against my 401k to finance it. Each time, he promised things would be different. Each time, I believed him. My cousin Nina attempted to caution me last year. Selene, she had mentioned during one of our coffee meetings, don't you find it odd that Daniel never includes you in his business choices? You're literally a financial analyst. I defended him, naturally. Of course he doesn't want to trouble me, I had responded. Besides, he's my husband. I have faith in him. Faith, what a naive concept that appears now. The indicators were all present. The late-night calls he would take in the garage, the unexpected business trips he could never fully clarify, the way he began urging me to dispose of my assets months ago, claiming we needed to streamline our lives. I had close to $400,000 in equity from selling the house, plus an additional $200,000 from my retirement funds and investments. All of it was converted to cash, exactly as he recommended, to facilitate the international relocation. All of it now vanished, moved to accounts I couldn't locate. The irony isn't lost on me. I dedicate my days to examining financial patterns for multi-million-dollar corporations, spotting irregularities, and preventing fraud. Yet I couldn't or wouldn't recognize what was occurring within my own household. But as I sat there in our vacant rental property, surrounded by nothing except packed containers and shattered aspirations, something inside me grew hard. I might have been oblivious before, but my vision was crystal clear now, and what I was preparing to do would make Daniel regret ever undervaluing me. My hands shook as I investigated further into Daniel's email archive. Each message unveiled another aspect of their plot. Kate wasn't merely Daniel's lover. She was a former client who had assisted him in orchestrating everything. They had been planning their getaway for months, carefully manipulating me into liquidating all our possessions. The spouse suspects nothing. Daniel had written to her 6 weeks earlier. She's too occupied planning our fictional life in London to observe anything else. Almost makes me feel guilty for her. Almost. The casual nature of that word made my stomach churn. I printed everything, my analyst's brain engaging. Their correspondence revealed a clear picture. While I was selling our home and dismantling my life in Minneapolis, they were establishing their new one in Austin. They had already purchased a house there using my funds, naturally. The deed bore Kate's name, dated merely 3 days prior. My phone chimed with a text from Daniel. I'm sorry it concluded this way. I've left signed divorce documents with my attorney. It's preferable for both of us to handle this quickly and cleanly. Quickly and cleanly, like removing a bandage, except he had taken everything, leaving me with nothing but packed boxes and an empty rental I couldn't afford. I contacted Parker and Reed, my hands trembling. Linda, my supervisor, answered on the second ring. I require assistance, I said, my voice breaking. I can't travel to London next month for the client meeting because there is no London. The entire story poured out. There was an extended pause before Linda spoke. Selene, I need you to listen carefully. What Daniel and his partner have done isn't just morally reprehensible. It's criminal fraud. You need to contact the police immediately, then call your bank. I'm sending you the contact information for an excellent attorney. Use it, and Selene... Your position is safe. Take whatever time you require. I felt the first tears stream down my face, not from sorrow, but from relief at having at least one stable element in my life. The following hours passed in a whirlwind of phone calls, police, banks, attorney. Each conversation reinforced the enormity of what Daniel had accomplished. But it was a call from my bank that finally devastated me. Mrs. Harris, I'm afraid the majority of the transfers were authorized by you, the fraud representative said gently. Since you voluntarily converted and moved the assets, there's very little we can accomplish. I ended the call and surveyed the empty house, empty because I had intentionally stripped it bare for a fresh beginning. In the fading afternoon light, I glimpsed my reflection in the window. I barely recognized myself, but as I stared at my image, something shifted in my expression. I was a financial analyst who specialized in tracking monetary trails. I possessed contacts, abilities, and expertise that Daniel knew nothing about. He believed he had destroyed me, but he had just committed the greatest error of his life. I spent the following week operating from my cousin Nina's spare bedroom, transforming it into what resembled a detective's headquarters. Every wall was covered with printouts, bank records, property documents, email traces. Each night, I remained awake late, pursuing the money trail Daniel had left behind. You need to rest, Nina said, bringing me coffee one morning. She observed the dark circles beneath my eyes with worrying. You can't continue like this. I can't. Sleep, I responded, scrolling through another bank record. Not while they're enjoying themselves with my money in Austin. I had already traced the largest transfer, $380,000, that had moved through 3 separate banks before settling in an account under Kate's name. That money had purchased their house, a fact that made my blood boil. They were probably decorating at that moment with expensive furnishings while I slept on an air mattress. My attorney, Sarah Mitchell, called with an update that made everything worse. The police are treating it as a civil issue, she explained. Since you authorized the transfers and there's evidence you were aware of the accounts ... because he informed me they were for our relocation, I interrupted. For our supposed new life in London. I understand, Sarah said patiently, but proving fraud will be challenging. These cases often become word against word situations, and a paper trail shows your consent. I hung up feeling defeated. That evening, I made my first error. I called Daniel. You won't escape punishment for this, I declared when he answered. He actually laughed. Escape punishment for what? You signed everything over willingly. Check the documentation, Selene. You're the financial expert. After all, I'll fight this, I warned. I'll take you to court. With what funds? His voice was calm, confident. Face reality, Selene. It's finished. Move forward. After he disconnected, I did something I hadn't permitted myself to do yet. I completely broke down. All the stress, anger, and humiliation came flooding out. Nina found me sitting on the floor, surrounded by papers, weeping. I've lost everything, I whispered. My home, my savings, my retirement. Everything I worked for has simply vanished. Nina sat beside me, picking up one of the bank statements. Not everything, she said firmly. You still possess your abilities, your intelligence, and you have me. She was correct about one thing. I still had my skills. And as I dried my eyes, an idea began forming. Daniel had manipulated me personally, but professionally, I remained at the peak of my field. At Parker and Reed, I had access to sophisticated financial tracking tools, ones that could follow money trails far more effectively than personal bank searches. I called Linda the following morning. I need to take some vacation days, I said, and I need a favor. Linda listened as I explained my plan. When I finished, there was a lengthy pause. You understand what you're requesting, she said finally. Using company resources for personal matters is against policy. I know, I replied quietly, but I also know how many times my work has saved the company millions. I've never asked for anything in return until now. Another pause. You have 2 weeks of vacation time, she said finally. What you do with that time is your business. Just be cautious, Selene. And don't do anything illegal. I hung up feeling energized for the first time in days. Daniel thought he had won, thought he had broken me. But he was about to learn a harsh lesson. Never underestimate a woman who knows how to follow the money. Using Parker and Reed's financial tracking software after hours felt strange, but I pushed aside my guilt. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about justice. The programs I used daily to trace corporate fraud patterns started revealing something unexpected about Daniel and Kate's scheme. They became careless. I told Nina over breakfast. They thought they covered their tracks. But they made amateur mistakes. What kind of mistakes? She asked, leaning forward. Kate's been transferring money between accounts trying to hide the trail, but she's using a pattern, moving funds every 3 days, always in specific amounts. The software detected it immediately, but that wasn't the biggest revelation. As I dug deeper, I discovered something that made my heart race. Daniel and Kate had been operating a small-scale Ponzi scheme through his consulting business. They had defrauded at least 6 other people before targeting me. My hands trembled as I read through the evidence, names, dates, amounts. It was all there. They'd used their charm to convince people to invest, show them fake returns for a few months, then disappear with the money. I wasn't their first victim. I was just their biggest prize yet. I called Sarah immediately. This changes everything, she said after I explained. We're no longer looking at a divorce dispute. We're looking at wire fraud and investment fraud. This is federal territory now, but I wasn't ready to go to the authorities yet. I needed more proof, and I had another card to play first. I reached out to Marcus, an old college friend who now worked at the bank where Kate had opened her newest account. Over coffee, I laid out what I'd found. Jesus, Selene, he said, reviewing the documents. This is serious stuff. I know, I replied. That's why I need your help. What happened next was like watching dominoes fall. Marcus flagged Kate's account for suspicious activity, which triggered an automatic freeze right when they were closing on another investment property. The timing couldn't have been better. Within hours, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. What did you do? It was Kate, showing her first sign of panic. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded all my evidence to the other victims. I'd identified one by one. They started coming forward, each with their own story of betrayal. Linda called me that evening. Selene, we've been contacted by the FBI about some irregular transactions you flagged in our system. I took a deep breath. I can explain everything. No need, she interrupted. I've already told them you had my authorization to use the software. They want to meet with you tomorrow. That night, I sat in Nina's guest room staring at my laptop screen. I had access to one more nuclear option, an option I'd been saving. Daniel had made one critical mistake. He'd used the same password for everything since college, including his email. With a few keystrokes, I logged into his account. There it was, every conversation with Kate, every plan they'd made, every lie they told. I downloaded everything, my finger hovering over the forward button. With one click, I could send it all to his entire professional network. I thought about how he'd laughed on the phone, so confident in his victory. The old Selene might have hesitated, might have shown mercy, but I wasn't the old Selene anymore. I clicked send. The response was immediate and devastating. Within hours of sending those emails, Daniel's professional world imploded. His clients, colleagues, and business partners all received documented proof of his fraud scheme. His phone must have been exploding with messages because he finally broke his silence. You've ruined me, he texted. Are you happy now? I stared at his message, feeling nothing but cold determination. No, Daniel, I'm just getting started. The FBI meeting. The next morning was intense. I sat in a sterile conference room with two agents, methodically walking them through everything I'd uncovered. They seemed particularly interested in the pattern of fraud against multiple victims. Mrs. Harris, Agent Roberts said, what you've uncovered here isn't just one isolated incident. This appears to be a sophisticated criminal enterprise. I handed them my final piece of evidence, a detailed spreadsheet tracking every transaction, every victim, every dollar. They thought they could hide their trail, I explained, but money always leaves footprints if you know where to look. That's when things took an unexpected turn. Agent Roberts slid a document across the table. We've been watching Miss Catherine Bennett, Kate, for the past year. She's been involved in similar schemes in 3 other states. My heart stopped. What? She's a professional con artist, Mrs. Harris, and it seems your husband was not just her accomplice. He may have been her mark too. I felt the room spin slightly. The agent's words hit me like a physical blow. Could Daniel have been played as well? Had Kate manipulated him the same way they'd manipulated me? But before I could process this revelation, my phone buzzed with an urgent message from Marcus. Kate's trying to empty the frozen accounts. She's at the bank right now making a scene. I excused myself and called Marcus immediately. She's threatening legal action, he explained. Says she's to the bank for wrongful account freezing. She's got a lawyer with her. Don't release anything, I insisted. The FBI is involved now. There's more, Marcus added, his voice tense. She's claiming the money was a legitimate business investment. She's got documentation with your signature on it. My blood ran cold. I remembered signing a stack of papers Daniel had given me, supposedly for our London move. Those signatures were obtained under false pretenses. I argued. That may be true, but it complicates things legally. I rushed back into the conference room where the FBI agents were preparing to leave. Kate's at Meridian Bank right now, I blurted out. She's trying to access the accounts. They exchanged glances. Mrs. Harris, Agent Roberts said carefully, we need you to understand something. If you've taken any actions that could be considered illegal. Everything I did was legal. I interrupted. I just followed the money. That's my job. But as they hurried out, I felt a knot forming in my stomach. Had I gone too far? Had my desire for revenge made me sloppy? I pulled out my phone and called Sarah, my lawyer. As it rang, I saw another text from Daniel. You have no idea what you've started. Kate isn't who you think she is. We're both in danger now. For the first time since this began, I felt a flicker of fear. What had I actually stumbled into? I need to speak with Daniel. I made this decision after a sleepless night of weighing my options. If Kate was really who the FBI claimed, I needed to understand the full scope of what we were dealing with. Nina thought I was crazy to even consider it. He'll just manipulate you again, she warned, but I wasn't the same naive woman who had trusted him blindly. I arranged to meet Daniel at a coffee shop near Nina's house, making sure it was public and well-populated. When he walked in, I barely recognized him. Gone was his usual confident demeanor. He looked haunted, nervous. Kate's gone, he said without preamble, sliding into the seat across from me. She cleared out everything she could access before the accounts were frozen. Even the house has been sold. How does it feel? I asked coldly, being the one who's left with nothing. His hands trembled as he placed a USB drive on the table. I kept records of everything, every transaction, every conversation, every scheme she planned. I thought. I thought I could use it as insurance. But she's always been 10 steps ahead. I stared at the drive, then at my broken husband. In that moment, I made my final move. I pulled out my phone and dialed Agent Roberts while Daniel watched, his face straining of color. I have everything you need, I said into the phone, and a witness ready to testify. Daniel's shoulders slumped in defeat as I hung up. He knew it was over. Kate might have escaped with some money, but she'd lost her partner and her cover. As for Daniel, he was about to learn that betrayal comes with consequences. One way or another, the aftermath unfolded faster than I expected. With Daniel's testimony and the evidence I'd gathered, the FBI tracked Kate to Miami, where they arrested her attempting to board a flight to the Cayman Islands. She had accounts scattered across 5 states and victims going back 6 years. Daniel, in exchange for his cooperation, received a lighter sentence, 5 years instead of 15. I attended their sentencing hearings, sitting quietly in the back of the courtroom. As I watched them both being led away in handcuffs, I felt no joy, no sadness, just a profound sense of closure. The funds will be recovered and distributed among the victims, Agent Roberts told me afterward. It will take time, but you should get most of your money back. But I had already moved on. Parker and Reed had promoted me to head of their new fraud detection unit, inspired by how I'd uncovered Kate's scheme. I'd bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood, nothing fancy, but it was mine. Truly mine this time. Nina helped me move in, arranging furniture and hanging pictures on a sunny Saturday afternoon. You know what's funny? I said, unpacking a box of books. Daniel always said I was too trusting, too naive. Turns out I just trusted the wrong people. And now? Nina asked. I smiled, thinking of my new team at work, the other victims I'd helped, the life I'd rebuilt from scratch. Now I trust myself, and that's enough. Later that evening, standing in my new kitchen, I raised a glass to my reflection in the window. The woman looking back at me was stronger, wiser, and finally completely free.